Now, with regarding to the future, I believe that there is a future of coexistence in this region, a peaceful region. My vision of peace is very simple. It's very simple. I wish everybody would just, like, if you remember anything from tonight, remember this. What does peace in the future look like? A strong Jewish Israel surrounded by strong Arab countries, strong Arab Muslim countries, or other, working in concert together. That's what the Abraham Accords is about. That's what we have with the UAE. That's what we have with Morocco. That's what we're going to have with Saudi Arabia. And that's the way it's moving forward. We're moving towards a regional relationship based on the Abrahamic principle that we're all Semitic brothers and sisters. But there are some people in this region, and I think my interlocutor represents that way of thinking, although he's not from this region. He's actually from Detroit. He's sitting in Detroit. And that's, I guess, an important marker about who he is in this discussion. But there are people in this region, which I think he represents, which don't want so-called normalization. They want to continue the battle forever. They want to get rid of Israel in toto. And so everything that I said a few minutes ago, that there could be, there is a movement towards reconciliation and normalization, but there's another group of people, I sometimes call them jihadists. Let's call them anti-normalization people who want to fight forever. And Amer Zahrs, from his writings, is one of those people. And I have to get a few things out here, some quotes. Every quote that I have of Amer Zahrs are quotes from his Twitter, quotes from his blog, quotes from his speeches. He starts out by saying, quick reminder, all forms of Zionism are racist. Every single one. Thanks. Free Palestine. Zionism is racism. So therefore, right from the get-go, we understand that we're dealing with somebody who really doesn't see any value in Israel as a Jewish state in this land whatsoever. It just does not fit in his mind as a place that has any rights. But just so you know how he really feels about things, he says, describing defenders of Israel as scumbags, pigs, and bastards is not necessary. Zionist is sufficiently insulting Palestine. So if I identify myself as a Zionist, you can understand that Amer Zahrs, behind any comedic line that he might say, thinks of me as a scumbag, pig, and a bastard. So therefore, conversation with him is not going to be very fruitful, probably. But why is he on this program in the first place? Why is he doing that? You know, that having this discussion is in itself an act of normalization, you may think, and that may be argued. But he explains that from a blog post from just a year ago. And he says, in my view, discourse with Zionist organizations or individuals that is precisely centered on condemning Israel's racist nature is not normalization. The great Edward Said routinely debated and destroyed Zionists quite publicly. And he goes on to explain that that's basically his modus operandi. The reason that he's here today is to destroy a Zionist. He's not here for a sulha, which means, peacemaking in Arabic. He's not here for that. He's here to rip me down and to destroy the very idea of a Jewish state in general, in toto. And therefore, I simply will identify Amer Zahrs. I'll identify him as an enemy, as what he identifies himself towards me as an enemy. But what kind of enemy is he? Who's really anti-normalization? Here's an article just from a few days ago from Asharq al-Aswat, a very important Middle Eastern newspaper, and it says 8 Hamas Islamic Jihad leaders leave Gaza to live abroad, and they live in Qatar and in Doha in fancy 5-star hotels. This guy, Ismail Haniyeh, he's a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, not a millionaire. And just like Yasser Arafat died with multi-billion dollars in his bank account, these folks are corrupt. Of course, they're anti-normalization. They make their money off this war. And so too, Amer Zahrs, he's going to sit back there in Detroit and he's going to decry against normalization with the Zionists forever. Only say one thing: free Palestine, free Palestine. That's what he says in his speeches. But it's on the back of who? It's on the back of average people who want to live a better life, who want to normalize. I meet with Arabs, Palestinians every month who want to normalize, who want to have a decent life with Israel in some relationship, in some way, in some fashion. But for Amer Zahrs out in Detroit, it's not necessary. He'll ride it. And that's what today is about. He's going to try to embarrass me. He's going to try to destroy any semblance of logic of the Jewish state. He's going to make it out to be apartheid and this guy was hurt and look what you guys did. All it is to continue the battle forever. He's not only an enemy of Yishai Fleisher's and Zionism, but also an enemy of Arabs who want to live a normal life. I know that UAE Arabs, Saudi Arabian Arabs, others see him as an enemy towards progress. And so therefore there is peace in the future, but not with folks like Amer Zahar.
Thank you, Yishai. Amer, before you take the floor, just one quick reminder for those in chat over here. Have a vibrant discussion, but anybody engaging in personal attacks is just going to be banned from chat. You're welcome in our space, but you must do so respectfully. So consider this your only warning. Amer, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by saying that I was told that we were going to start off with 3 minutes each. I think that was a lot more than 3 minutes. No big deal. I was also lectured before this thing to stay away from personal attacks, but that's okay. I'm used to it, so it's not a problem. But I would just let the audience know that that's what we were told before this started. I'm going to start with actually answering your question, Adar, and I'm sure we can get into many of the other issues that Yishai brought up earlier. My vision for Palestine, something that I've written about a lot, is pretty simple, which is one secular democratic state in the borders of Mandate Palestine. In other words, the borders that the British and French made in 1917, which today basically means everything that is the West Bank, Gaza, and Israel proper. This means one person, one vote, not a Jewish state, not an Arab state, not a Muslim state, not a Christian state, not a Palestinian state, but simply a state of the people. You know, Yishai wants to paint me in certain ways. By the way, thanks for the marketing of my quotes. I did say those things. I don't shy away from them. I'm not ashamed of them. But a lot of the arguments that sort of Zionists try to make now is that, look, Israel is simply the state of the Jewish people. We're returning to our ancient homeland, and that's it. And this would be fine and dandy if it hadn't also resulted in the displacement of, you know, almost 1 million people in 1948. There are about 5 million refugees today. They exist. They're real. They have a right to return to their homeland, no matter the circumstances of their leaving, whether or not they left because their village was massacred, or whether they were expelled violently, or whether they just left because it was hostile conditions, or whether even Arab nations told them, hey, leave, we'll defeat them and you can come back. No matter the circumstances of their expulsion, they have a right to return. That's pretty much ingrained in international law. And to sort of deny or be silent on that history. Look, I'll be the first to tell you, are Jews indigenous to the land of Palestine or Judea or Samaria or the land of Israel or whatever you want to call it? Yes, of course they are. Of course they are. But does that claim of indigeneity allow you to expel another group of people and deny their return? Give me a moral argument for that. I don't think so. And so my vision is that, of course, everyone lives. There's room. I mean, the Israeli government has no problem finding room to build new settlements for new Jewish refugees or immigrants that want to come to Palestine all the time. So there's room. You know, I'll do away with the ideas. I mean, you know, it's sort of, I don't know, what's the word we want to use? Rich to say, hey, I'm sitting here debating a Palestinian who doesn't live there. Yeah, my grandparents were kicked out of their home by Zionist forces in Jaffa in 1948. So, you know, yeah, of course, I have lived outside of Palestine for most of my life. So, I mean, this kind of rich to say something like that and to deny the simple thing, which is we wish to have our right of return enforced, and we wish to live in a secular democratic state. Now, another time you'll hear people say, well, look, there's other Arab countries. Go there or go live there or whatever. Well, we're not from there. We have as much of a history in that land as anybody else. In fact, historians have pretty clearly said that the Palestinians of today are a mix of all the people that have come through the land over the last 3,000-4,000 years. I mean, Jews weren't the first people in the land, right? There were other people that we know. Even the Bible tells us, even if you take the Bible as a purely historical document, which scholars don't agree about that anyway. But even if you took the Bible as a purely historical document, there were other people there. I mean, Jerusalem was a settlement before David was there. We know all these things. And so the Palestinians of today are a mix of all of those people, including Jews, by the way, over the centuries that have lived in the land of Palestine. So the Zionist argument, however, says that these people are not somehow indigenous to the land, that they only stem from the Arabs who came in the year in the 600s, which of course is not true. Palestine wasn't empty when the Muslim Arab conquerors came. So I mean, and Arabs were actually in Palestine before Umar ibn al-Khattab came. We know that from Arab history of Arabs in Jordan. So I mean, again, the denial of Palestinian indigeneity is essential to the idea of Zionism, right? They have to deny that we're from there, or else they have to grapple with that. I'm fully accepting that Jews are from there. I don't make the arguments that some other people might make that, you know, hey, the Ashkenazi Jews are only from Europe or they're a European invention. Whatever. If Jews say that if even European Jews say that their history goes all the way back to their expulsion by the Romans from the land of Palestine 2,000 years ago, great, fine. We can accept all of that. I'm simply saying every human life is worth another human life. No one's better than anyone else. A Jewish state in the land of Palestine says that Jews have more right, not says, actually acts, right? Zionism is what Zionism does. And there are numbers of laws which obviously favor Jews over non-Jews, let alone the nation state law that was passed a few years ago. But even as simply as the law of return that says any Jew from anywhere in the world can return tomorrow and get citizenship. And that right is not extended to Palestinians who also can trace their lineage to Palestine pre-1948. In fact, the trouble in Sheikh Jarrah, where another family was expelled today, their house demolished in the dead of night, so no cameras would be there. 20 members of a family made homeless in Jerusalem today in order to pave way for Jewish settlement. That's all based on Israeli laws that say Jews can claim ownership of land before 1948, so before the state. Jews can claim ownership of land before 1948 and pursue that claim in court, and Palestinians cannot. I mean, as a lawyer, I'm sure that Yishai would understand the ridiculousness of a law like that. But this is the world that we find ourselves in. So ultimately, I say Palestinians, Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, everybody who is from there should live under a secular, democratic state where anybody could be the prime minister, where the people could decide whoever leads them, that it's not based on one ethnicity or race or religion. It's as simple as that to me. Israel now currently does function as one state, but it functions as an apartheid state. It says Jews get more rights than others. The Palestinians who live in the West Bank and Gaza are fully governed by the state of Israel. Their electricity can be turned off by a switch by the state of Israel because it all functions under the same infrastructure, right? The banking system, the financial system, the electricity, the grid, the cell phone. The Palestinian cell phone companies that market themselves as Palestinian are buying bandwidth from Israeli companies because Israel controls everything. It's two systems for two different people. We have a name for that. It's called apartheid. I'm saying an end to that. And in as much as Zionism, and I've never met a form of Zionism that doesn't say we need to maintain a Jewish majority in the state, or at least a Jewish majority among citizens of the state. I've never met a form of Zionism that didn't say that. In as much as every form of Zionism says that, yes, every form of Zionism is racist by definition. When you say we need to maintain a particular ethnic, I mean, imagine if an American political party or political movement came forward, which they have before, but I mean, imagine if it even happened today, that said, look, the directive of our party, of our movement, is to maintain a white majority in America. It wouldn't be pretty difficult, and I'm sure Yishai would label that very quickly as racist. And so, of course, every form of Zionism, in as much as every form of Zionism I've ever come across, says that you need to maintain a Jewish majority and Jewish rule and Jewish domination in the land, is racist. I'm saying an end to that. Simply a secular, democratic state period, for all the people that live on the land and all the people that have their daily lives decided by Israel.
Okay. Well, I think Amer Zahir, as usual, is very well spoken, and frankly, it's a kind of privilege to be face to face with you. But first thing, just as you know, it was such a beautiful thing. It's like we're all going to be together, and I just can't figure this out. This part that says that we're scumbags, pigs, and bastards, right? That's like it just. You hear these things where they tell you that in the Palestinian world, in the Arab world, they'll say one thing in one place and another thing in another place. This may just be one of those examples where he's like saying to you, yeah, we're just going to all get along. It's just like, wow, we're going to have like this secular American togetherness in the Middle East. In fact, we're going to have the only democracy in the whole Middle East, 22 Arab countries, 400 million Arabs, not one democracy. But Amer Zahir from Detroit is going to figure out a way to have a secular, which nobody here around in this area is really that secular, but he's going to have a secular democracy, and we're all going to be together because we love each other. In the meantime, those Zionists are scumbags, pigs, and bastards.
Yishai, Yishai, sorry to interrupt. Let's please keep it on Amer's arguments because he had time to speak.
Argument,
but he didn't mention your name. He didn't make a character attack.
That's because he didn't look into it. Because there's no text of me saying anything like this about Palestinians or anybody else. Doesn't exist because I don't talk the way I don't think that way. But that exists right on the front of his Twitter.
Yishai, I hear you, but I think the viewers want to hear why Amer's arguments are wrong rather than just hearing why you don't think he's a good person. I think it's going to be a much more productive discussion.
I appreciate your question.
If we stick to that.
The issue of lying and telling what's really going on behind the scenes is a key issue here in the Middle East. I'm not going to just address an argument in the air when we understand what's actually happening here. What's happening here is an effort to delegitimize Israel as it is, to replace it with something else. And there are faces here that are not being shown. And if you want me to take an argument seriously, I have to think to myself, is this person actually has that interest in mind? Or is this a ploy to destroy Israel as a Jewish state, replace it with something else? In fact, the thing that is being represented right now, the force that's being represented, I'll give you just one example. This family that was just evicted from Sheikh Jarrah, right? He said it was in order to make a Jewish settlement. Actually, it's to make an Arab school. That plan has been there on the table since 2017. It's all over the newspapers. You can read it in any newspaper, including the Arab newspapers. Everybody knows that the family that was kicked out because they were told a long time ago that's not their property and there's going to be an Arab school there. But no, Amer Zahir says, no, it's to make a Jewish settlement. So when you hear that kind of stuff, you think to yourself, wait a minute, before I analyze the merits of the argument, let me understand who's really making it. Maybe there's something more here. Maybe I'm being lied to right to my face. With regard to the arguments itself, it's very simple. This is our land. This is our land. And just like Japan, by the way, what other countries have a right of return? Germany, China, Poland, Italy. Many countries have a right of return. Many countries are interested in promoting their ethnicity, their family, their group, their tribe. The Middle East understands tribes. There's no democracy in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, it's controlled by a tribe. The UAE, controlled by different tribes and tribe heads. Everybody understands that. So this thing that you're hearing from Amer Zahir, which is like this American type dream. I mean, if there's a colonialism, if there's a Westernism that's trying to force its colonialist ideas upon us, it's what he's saying right now. Nobody around here does a democracy for everybody and just vote. And it doesn't work that way. This is tribal lands, and this is Jewish tribal land. The Quran recognizes that. The New Testament, so-called, recognizes that. The Old Testament, the Torah, recognizes that. Everybody knows that. History recognizes that. Balfour Declaration recognized that. Everybody knows that. So this is tribal land. This is tribal Jewish land. Actually, Amer Zahir himself is from what we understand is the original Palestinian state, which is Jordan, and that was cut away from the land that was supposed to be part of the Jewish state by the British. And they created basically a Palestinian state. It is the original two-state solution. And if Amer Zahir wants to get back to Jordan and work on the democracy there's no democracy there. Of course, there's just a Bedouin king. But if he wants to work on that, then tfaddal. bevakasha, you can go over there and make that beautiful democracy that you wish for. This happens to be our land, our historic homeland. Yes, there are minorities here. Our job is to make sure that they're well incorporated and have upward mobility. I myself am a big critic of the Israeli support for the Palestinian Authority, which is the one big sin of Israel, that we have this other entity which is anti-Semitic, corrupt, and also repressive of the Arabs and Palestinians. And sadly, I think my country is part of that mechanism. But if I could, I would certainly get rid of that immediately. Give residency to all the Arabs who are non-jihadists, Palestinians who are non-jihadists, and give them upward mobility in this country. Maybe a pathway to citizenship for those people who prove loyalty. Maybe not. Maybe residency is enough. There's many ways, and I've written about it in the New York Times, 5 alternatives to the two-state solution. But in any case, the key to moving forward, though, is goodwill. And the reason that I was specifically talking about Zahrs' writings is because that's the question behind it. Is it really an interest for like a state for everybody to live together, or is it really just a ploy to undermine Israel, to destroy it? And you see that in all of his writings. You can see it in all of his writings. He says, and we say very proudly that we stand with every resistance against Israel and every resistance against the occupation, whether it's called Hamas or whether it's called Hezbollah. That's from his Facebook page. So we're talking about somebody who right now has given us one version of things, but in another venue will call for the destruction of Israel in toto. I know many Arabs who do want a future with Israel. I don't think I'm listening to one of them right now.